Absolutely. Just start up front, obviously, to pass on, as well everybody else, the hopes and prayers and thoughts to all the people involved in Las Vegas. The things that went on out there, obviously a great indication of what's going on in our society, and just continue to prepare and safety for everybody involved there and in the future. So last week, I know a couple guys asked after the last one, so offensively we gave MVP status to Jordan Jones and Deion Stewart. To get those two involved in the game was awesome. Both of them took huge steps in their preparation, as well as their performance during the game. The defense scout MVP was Brendan Young, who actually got a couple plays in on special teams as well. A guy that's really been a nice development here in fall camp. Defensively, the MVP went to Dwayne Eugene, just playing at a really high level. Hit a couple nice moves on pass rush to get a got a sack, as well as a couple TFLs. Just engaged. Just a really good overall performance by him. Our offensive scout MVP was Dalton Hyatt, freshman quarterback. Was really impressive all week during the camp, as well as just last week running the scout team offense. And then special teams, Ryder Lucas had a number of plays on all four phases of the kicking game that gave him that. And our scout team special teams player was Byron Keaton. Really came out of the game pretty healthy. Didn't have any issues pop up during the course of the game that will limit anybody going into this week. We did have a little bit of a flu bug go around towards the end of the week. A couple guys were sick and nauseous, but really other than that, those guys all recovered. And I think Hayden Henry had a pretty good bout with some food poisoning. I don't know where he got it, how he got it, but he was pretty sick Thursday, Friday. Came back and played well on Saturday. So should everybody back out there. I like the progress that some guys made, but on the same account, we still have a lot of things we got to clean up: offense, defense, and certain phases of the kicking game. I did like that certain new players arose, really in all facets, as well as some of the older players continue to move forward. So we'll jump into this week, a South Carolina team that obviously has had some success. I know they lost a tough one to A&M on Saturday, but a very good quarterback. Will's always going to have a great defense. They're very opportunistic players. Had a big win earlier in the year against NC State, and obviously they've been on to do some good things. So we've got our work cut out for us. Again, the SEC road game, but I think our guys are very excited. Probably get on the road and play in the SEC and see exactly what we got. So with that, I'll leave it from there.
You talked to Petway Sunday, and what's his stand?
I did, yeah. I talked to Michael and his mom. He made a lot of progress in the things that we asked him to do. We're still going to take this week to evaluate and see where he's at. As of right now, he wouldn't play on Saturday, but see how he handles the week. Thursday, we have a big academic meeting in the morning. Hopefully he continues to make a step forward there, as well as everything else that we've asked him to do, and we'll kind of play it by ear.
So, but he's practicing?
No, he won't practice with us this week at all yet.
Could you have envisioned that David Williams would fit in as well as he has, and as productive as he has?
You know, just a little bit, Tom, because I had a little bit of a history with him. You know, I knew him obviously as a recruited high school player. I knew that he stood for a lot of the great things. His high school coaches raved about his skill set. And just so you guys know, had a conversation with David last night. As you know, that I really try to put our players in the best position to handle the week. I knew that there was going to be a lot of conversation when I started recruiting David. Obviously, SEC transfer, but then also a team that you're playing. Normally, we don't play, so. I asked David last night, listen, we can do everything. You can do every interview that comes across your desk. We can limit it just to one day this week, or we can do none. And we kind of opted together that we're going to not have him available to the media until Saturday. Not out of negativity or anything, just that no needed dialogue more than it already is. I will say this: when I called Will and when I talked to anybody at South Carolina, they raved about him and who he was and what he was. There was never any angst or ill will, and the same was from David. David never had anything but positive dialogue. He wanted to get to an opportunity to maybe play in a pro-style offense and change it up for his senior year, and obviously we were able to fall into that mode, and he's been a blessing in disguise, just a tremendous person. You know, when I brought him on his visit, you know, I even told him, I said, hey, if it's not a good fit for you or me, we'll go in a different direction, but let's just come and see what we got. And he was awesome once he got here, and he's been an unbelievable addition since then.
Brennan Young, I never heard of that guy. Where did he come from? I mean, I came from OBU. What's his
Yeah, I know we recruited him a little bit out of high school. We didn't have a scholarship opportunity for him, but when chance for him to come to campus here, I believe he contacted us after that first semester of his freshman year. either through Barry or through his high school coach, I can't remember, and then really kind of made a name for himself last spring. And I know Coach Rose felt really strong about him. Special teams guys started talking about him, and then just a popular player with their players overall. And I was looking for guys to maybe step up in the kicking game, and he did a really nice job. Him and Derek Munson both did a really nice job.
You said he knocked your offensive guys around and stuff?
He did. He's a very explosive, very powerful kid, very conscientious. Plays a lot of physicality down there. Him and Munson both, I think, made that notoriety early on, and that's why we thought we'd give him a shot, and obviously worked out well.
Speaking of Munson, the decision to play him, does that mean that he might get some work at linebacker?
Absolutely.
I think Buster, there was some talk maybe that Buster might be in.
Yeah, rep Buster a little bit last week, just not quite there yet for us to feel good about. To be quite honest, I wanted to get 2 more players. And Brendan Young, it doesn't affect his eligibility at all. And Munson, we thought would probably be able to give us a little bit more versatility with all 4 phases of the kicking game, in addition a little bit from the line of scrimmage on defense. So he's an explosive player. He's a guy that ever since I've seen him on film, he's always been able to find the ball. He's a guy that I think obviously now on special teams, but he's kind of a fearless kid. He likes the physicality of it. You saw him on that fumble on kickoff coverage really came from him blowing a guy up, hit him into the guy, that spin the guy around, and then the ball was loose and came out from there. But again, another great kid out of Rummel. I offered him when he was a sophomore in high school. I actually went off his high school coach's recommendation. I'd seen him practice a little bit, but his high school coach spoke very highly of him. I went into like 3 high schools that day around New Orleans, and every high school coach said, hey, if you get a chance, that Munson kid, because they knew we were good in Rummel. So I pulled the trigger on him after we looked at his transcript, and it all's worked out well.
Is there any advantage for you guys being able to watch Texas A&M and South Carolina play Texas A&M?
I get it. For me, just personally, I was sitting on my couch Saturday night, and I had some family in town, and they cleared out. So I was sitting there with Jen and Bella, and just because you're so fresh in your head, you kind of knew. Like I saw sets, and I'm like, oh, they got this. How is South Carolina going to play this defensively? On the flip side, when South Carolina was lining up, I knew what A&M does a little bit defensively, and it was fun to see those strategies. There's some carryover, obviously, but because it is a new opponent that we don't normally play, I think you try to draw a lot from common opponents. They started off with Dave Dorn, NC State, Dave Dorn, and I worked together forever. So I'd watched that game earlier in the year just as a fan, and had saw that game unfold. So it's a little bit of that. I understand the question, but I think it's more off of what we see on film now, the coach's copy.
Can we go back to you? Monterey might still play in special teams?
Possibly, yeah. I think you're crossing that bridge. We're after game 4 now. So by NCAA rules, if you play in 4 games and become injured after that, basically it's 33% of the games you play, you can be redshirted. And from game 4 to 6 kind of comes that cutoff point where you just got to say it's a point of no return.
Oh, yeah, we heard you did the hokey pokey after.
So in my tradition growing up, in post-game celebration, that was one of Coach Fry's big deals. I don't know, I never heard of it here before, so I'm assuming that's something that he came up on his own. I almost did it my first year. It's for big games, and one of the things that I was stressing last week to our guys is we need to have fun. Guys, there's so much negativity that gets brought into your world. When these moments come, we gotta have a little bit of fun. So I had thought about it a little bit during the course of the summer, and just hadn't had a moment where I thought it. And then after the game, guys were happy and excited, so I threw it out there, and we had a little bit of fun with it, and hopefully it continues to grow.
Is this something you'll make a tradition out of?
Well, we'll see. I wanted to see their reactions, and a lot of them had fun. I don't know if they're having fun with me or the act itself, but it definitely got a reaction, which is what I was hoping for.
They're having to adjust without Debo Samuels. Can you see what you've seen from them the last couple of games?
He's a tremendous player. Obviously, and never had obviously had a chance to watch much of him until this film came about. But I'll tell you what, their quarterback's a really, really good player. Obviously, he made some plays happen. On special teams, he was really effective, obviously, too. But I think their tight end, 81, is a really dynamic. They use him in a variety of different ways. A very, 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 very good football player. I think as the case with Will, you know, he's a defensive-minded coach. Their defense is solid. They make a lot of really good plays. They play hard. They play aggressively. Sky Moore was a guy that visited here. We were on him hard to try and get him to come here. Thought we had a shot, and so I've kind of always watched his career from afar just because I like the kid, and then obviously to persevere through what he did last year. It's a neat story to see unfold because he's a really, really talented player. But otherwise, I think just out of respect to two ball clubs that are going to show up and play.
When you watched the tape, what did you see from the offensive line and the combinations? How do you think that worked?
Our offensive line, yeah. Well, a couple steadies. Frank's playing incredibly well. Yoda's playing fairly well. I mean, he's going to have one or two plays that we just got to continue to make him get better. But I mean, he's playing really, really good football. Colton Jackson probably played one of his better games overall. Really practiced well last week and did a good job. We did a little bit of substitution during the course of the week at practice with Johnny Gibson relieving Ty. Just don't know if Ty is able to play 60 snaps of SEC football yet. But Johnny Gibson, again, has been very versatile at right guard, right tackle. Paul Ramirez came in, and other than that one holding call, and really played pretty clean football overall. So excited about the growth there. And then Brian Wallace is knocking on the door. I think he's at a position that this week we could possibly see him in the mix. He's really been great in the practice, just his attitude and demeanor, and very, very positive, and hopefully can get him on the field this weekend.
He's a guy that's played a little bit as a true freshman, and he's obviously played more.
Yeah.
Now he's playing quite a bit for you, making some plays. How would you assess his career?
You know, just probably one of the more enjoyable kids to watch grow. He was a high school safety. I put him in. I grabbed him out of camp. Liked the way he moved. I thought he could be a linebacker. Probably because of our depth that first year, we just couldn't afford to redshirt him. So we played him as a true freshman, but he was heavily involved in special teams his first 2 years. A very conscientious young man. One of the first things that I remember him getting up and talking about his daddy taught him that you can learn something from everyone, and to make sure that you take advantage of that, because every person that gets up and talks, like I have guest captains come in. So Friday, Russell got up and talked. He was sitting there right in the front row, writing everything down that Russell said. Anytime I'm talking, I see him over there writing everything down. Every coach gets up and speaks, he takes notes. His attention to detail is meticulous. Now the thing about physically, you look at him, he's a 240-pound SEC athlete. He came in probably under 210 pounds, 205 probably, and he's developed himself into a really, really good player and playing exceptionally high level, and his leadership skills have been off the charts.
Is that atypical for a guy to take notes on an honorary guest captain?
I would say it's not in the norm. There's a lot of our guys that take notes, though, especially when it's a non-football person. You'll see probably, I would say, half the room take out a notepad, and we all give them notepads, to write down during the course of the week. And I think we've had some pretty powerful speakers in here during those time frames, and Russell is no different. And I think those kids want to write down what they say. I brought him up. I brought Russell's comments up Friday night in the team meeting, Saturday before the game. It's one of those things that when those guys sit in the chairs that they sit in now, and here's a former player that now, and then Russell's done very well in his personal life to be worth a lot of money. Those guys take note of those success stories both on and off the field. Nate, unfortunately, Deion had been kind of nicked since fall camp. He had twisted his ankle. I go back to the bowl game a year ago. We had a plan that was probably going to try to get him about 6 to 8 touches during the course of the bowl game. And his first touch he scored on, but he also tweaked his ankle. And unfortunately, that shut that window off for the rest of that day. And then this year, same thing. We've been wanting to get him involved, but he had tweaked. He actually had surgery on the ankle during the out of season. And then came into fall camp and tweaked it was more of a foot than an ankle, and just finally got healthy. And I'll tell you what, Saturday, that bubble screen where he put that right foot in the ground and accelerated and dashed vertically through those two defenders is, I think, a very good indication of what he can do. He's very, very talented, probably one of the quicker kids that we have on our football team.
After the game, Coach Martin was really complimentary of your linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it's probably the one position, I would say linebackers and O-linemen, that if I had my first 1 or 2 recruiting classes to do over again, I would have grabbed more of them. We were depleted at both positions. And then really those following years, because we played some guys earlier than they should have, it's depleted us now a little bit. But I would say, you know, Scooter played his best game, very active, very physical. He could run. Coach is probably talking, they tried some pipe routes, some things that he got vertical on, Scooter did, that showed his athleticism. Dre, even though he didn't have his most productive game, you know, he's very physical, and I think he shows up on film, and now he's got to make some better decisions. He's making some things at the line of scrimmage that he's got to get people aligned. As a linebacker, your responsibility is you're kind of a field general. You got to make sure people are aligned right and doing right. But I would say a guy that showed up kind of two different times, Grant Morgan with a tip pass in the red zone there. I don't know if too many guys would make that play. He recognized it. He saw the quarterback's eyes, and he looked and read and ran and got a hand on the ball and tipped it in a direction that went into K. Rich's hand. That doesn't happen by chance. That kid's got some gamesmanship to him. And then at the end of the game, he made, I believe, the last tackle, if I'm not mistaken, on an open field tackle on a player that's made a lot of people miss. So I'm excited about 31 and what he can bring.
When you look at the blowout so far early this season in the SEC, they surprised you. Is it just a matter of the league being top heavy, or what do you think is the reason?
You mean like games against each other? Yeah. You know, I really can't comment on it. All I see the scores. I don't know what happens during the course of the game. I know, obviously, you know, in this league, when if things get going one way, they can get going sideways in a hurry. I don't know if that's been the case. You know, just looking at our games and the way they've unfolded, a lot of times like key injuries become huge, and people tend, because coaches don't talk about it. But you know, if you're a team that maybe doesn't have that, you know, if you're not one of the top 2 personnel teams in the league, you have a critical injury at a certain position, things can get really, and it's a domino effect. You know, you pull a guy off a roster here, it might affect the other 3 phases of the kicking game, and that's really big. In addition to that, home game things, I think some teams, when you're at home, things can get really good in a hurry, but they can also get ugly. You know, if your home team isn't reacting in a certain way, or your fan base. So. It's just kind of college football the way it is right now, I think.
Hey, Bret, have you ever played against South Carolina before?
No, I have not. I don't. Never been to South Carolina. Never played. The only time we played them here was when they came here my first year. So.
What have you heard about the playing there and kind of what you expect?
Yeah, we'll expect crowd noise. We'll play. We'll play it up with our offensive guys. They'll be indoors all week. Get the crowd noise going and get everything that we do for SEC road games. The good news is we've got a center and a quarterback who are in charge of communication, really, who have played a lot of football. So offensively, you feel good about that. But we got to get the other linemen in check. We got to get our wide receivers in check. And then defensively, it can get loud, even though it's when they're on offense. It can get loud to make sure you get all the calls at the line of scrimmage and make adjustments, because that quarterback's very talented.
Right, you guys addressed 3 kickers every game this year. Do you anticipate taking all of them to South Carolina?
Yeah, right now, you know, Cole does some things that we would ask him to do during the course of the game if they came up. Connor obviously kicked the ball very well on kickoff on Saturday. Mazza is our, probably if I had a second string kicker, would be our guy. Although I think Cole, if he's kicking the ball well in pregame and has looked good all week, I would still use him just because he's done it and he has had some success. But Connor Limpert, Pat shared with me that we're the only team in FBS that hasn't kicked a field goal yet. But we've also been 9 out of 10 the last 10 trips in the red zone and have been touchdowns. The only one that didn't happen was the interception in overtime against A&M. So I'll take touchdowns over field goals any day.
You had a 40-yarder or a 41-yarder, and you had a chance in the 4th quarter. Is that maybe a good time to give Limpert his first kick?
Well, see, Tom, that would be giving away a trade secret. You try to keep things in as a coach that you want to have be surprises on game days. But Connor Limpert can hit from 41. I've seen him hit from 41. He's actually got a big leg. So in the first 2 or 3 games when Cole was our kicker, if we went something beyond, so I said out to the 25, which is a 43-yard field goal for Cole was his limit. If we went anywhere from 43 to 55, that was going to be Connor. I've seen him make a 56-yard field goal. I believe he made a 54-yarder Saturday in pregame. So he's got a very long leg and powerful leg.
How do you like what the tailback rotation is doing right now?
Yeah, you know, Devwall really came along last week during practice. He, like a couple other guys, that trimmed some weight down, felt really good on Saturday. He's probably got a better understanding of all of them about what we expect out of that tailback position. You know, we want them to get their 4. You know what I mean? So if we run a push play to the left, we want to get your 4. Your 40-yarder comes off of that play when you can maybe make a guy miss, or we get it blocked up perfectly. We don't. We try to plan our offense more along execution than trying to get lucky and see if people can't line up in the right way. I think that's the part that Devois knows. He can hit it up in there, hit it up in there, hit it up in there, and then all of a sudden he's free and he knows how to react off of it. I think Chase and a little bit of David both had a little bit of they were trying to make something big out of something that didn't necessarily exist. And with our scheme offensively, we want you to hit the hole. You know, obviously if it's closed off, you got to make some improvisation. But those 3 guys in general, they're into it. They're on it on the sideline. Both of them, David and Chase, did some really, really good things with the ball in their hand, as well as a couple protection things we got to clean up. But those 3 together, I think, are pretty formidable.
South Carolina has several injuries on the offensive line. Does that factor into how you guys make the game plan at all?
Well, you know, we know they're going to have 5 guys out there, but I agree. Yeah, they, you know, unfortunately they've had an injury bug. It's not going to really change what we do. You know, you just don't know who you're going against, and you know, the part that we have a task at hand is, I think that quarterback he has the ability to get rid of the football, kind of like Saturday. You know, so Saturday they lined the quarterback at 6, and he got rid of the football, even though we were coming with some free rushers. You couldn't get to him in time. He's going to throw the football out. I think this quarterback is very similar to that. He's, you know, obviously a coach's son. He's been around it. He gets football. He knows 2 + 2 = 4. He knows where to go with the football. If he sees something, he knows where to go with it. A very intelligent player that I think he gets better when the game gets tighter. You know, and on the flip side of it, we got to do a better job of executing our plan and make sure we can't give up any deep balls.
We hear a lot about what, you know, goes on in practice with line and receivers and stuff, but for him to actually connect a few times with Jordan.
With new faces? Yeah.
Just confidence and chemistry.
I think 3rd and 4th down. You know, I mean, 3rd down's one thing, but 4th down's even bigger. You know, and you know, we had some success, and again, you don't make a 4th down call with the idea you're going to fail. You make a call with the idea you're going to have success. And I thought he, in particular, that 1 4th down play where he kind of had a guy up in his face and he threw it to Dion out in the flat. Dion made a nice reach and grab to take a routine bubble play. I think you know, those bubbles and those quick hit plays for us, if you can take a couple of those and turn them into big hits, that shows gives your quarterback a lot of confidence. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think to do it in a live game situation gives 8. I think 8 had his best game of the year. Now there's some things we want to make sure we clean up and keep him up on his feet, but our guys protected him pretty well, and offensive line got better, which I think affected him overall.
Bret, you met your wife in Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I've been out there a few times,
Yeah.
it's a fun place. I mean, does that sort of hit home a little more because you've been there?
No, I've been in that hotel, but I know the exact area they're talking about. But no, I think this morning when I heard it driving in, I was just overwhelmed. First, that I want to know, you know, obviously I got a few country western buddies, and my first thought was either any of them there. So I Googled it up just to see who, you know, and I saw Jason Aldean. I saw Jason Aldean at the AMP, you know, and it's just those situations. My wife will tell you these things with the crowds and everything. I mean, it hits you, you know, and I know it hits our players. We talk about it with our players, you know, that you know, when the whole gun thing was coming up a year ago, we discussed it with our players. You just, when you're dealing with large crowds of environments, unfortunately in today's world, there are things that you've seen happen that you never would have conceived of at any point. But it's the reality of the world that we live in, and I think everybody is better off discussing it than ignoring it.
Bret, this is a new opponent, so I assume there's probably was a lot of off-season
Yeah.
study of these guys. How do you decide, are these teams hit our schedule early, we really break the...
Yeah, we actually did do South Carolina in the spring, and then of course in fall camp heavy. We knew that the quarterback was going to be a big part of it, and then when the receiver got hurt, you knew that was going to affect their offense. That's probably when I first started noticing because we don't cross over with them a lot. I love tight end play. When I saw 81 play the way he does, I mean, he's a guy that you admire and respect the way he plays the game and the way they use him. He's a very, very important part of their football program. You can tell that. And then defensively, I've just, you know, I've shared, Will and I have always been good since I've been in the league. I knew them beforehand, and admire and respect what they do defensively. because they're a little bit unique, you know.
Any more questions? Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.